I sent a message to my boyfriend telling him he would be a stepfather again, and instead of getting excited, he abandoned my 2 children and me. Richard and I had been together for exactly a year, and on the surface, everything looked like a Pinterest board of domestic bliss. He was incredible with my 2 children, always showing up for soccer games and helping with homework as if they were his own flesh and blood. However, I started to notice a shift in the atmosphere that only a woman with my level of intuition could detect. Things were becoming entirely too comfortable, and comfort is just another word for complacency in my book. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was just coasting along, enjoying the perks of a ready-made family without actually earning his place at the head of the table. A woman in my position has to be vigilant because men will take up space in your life for years without ever truly committing their soul to the cause. I needed to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if Richard was all in, or if he was just playing house until something easier came along. It's my responsibility to protect my heart and the future of my children, so I decided a little diagnostic check was in order. I'm not the kind of girl who just asks questions and hopes for the truth. I prefer to see how a man moves when the pressure is actually on. I spent a few hours scrolling through various forums until I found the perfect image to facilitate my little experiment. It was a crystal clear photo of a positive pregnancy test, the kind of result that looks undeniable and life-altering. I felt a surge of excitement as I saved it to my gallery, knowing that this was the key to unlocking the truth about Richard's character. I wasn't doing this to be mean, I was doing it because I deserve a man who is unbreakable under stress. If he truly loved me, a 3rd child wouldn't be a burden, but a beautiful expansion of the life we were building together. I sat on my sofa, watching my kids play on the rug, and felt a sense of righteous purpose as I prepared the message. I typed out the caption with a smirk, surprise. You're going to be a stepfather again. I hit send and watched the little clock icon spin for a second before it turned into a checkmark. My heart was racing, but it was the thrill of the hunt, the anticipation of seeing him prove his worth once and for all. I fully expected him to be at my door within 20 minutes, breathless and holding a bouquet of lilies, or perhaps finally bringing up the topic of us moving into a larger house together. That is how a real king responds to news that changes the trajectory of his kingdom. The minutes started to tick by, and the silence in the chat was the first sign that something was off, though I told myself he was just overwhelmed with joy. I saw the read receipts turn blue, and I held my breath, waiting for the 3 dots to appear, signaling that he was typing a long, emotional paragraph about our future. Instead of a message, I saw his status change to offline, which I initially interpreted as him getting into his car to rush over to me. I even checked my hair in the mirror and straightened the living room, wanting everything to look perfect for our big moment. I was already planning how I would laugh and tell him it was a test once he had sufficiently proven his devotion. 10 minutes passed, and when I went back to check the chat, something bizarre happened that I can only describe as a technical glitch or a momentary lapse in his sanity. His profile picture, a cute selfie we took at the park, suddenly vanished, replaced by a gray silhouette. I clicked on his profile to see if I had accidentally unfollowed him, but I couldn't even find his account in my search bar anymore. I tried to send a quick follow-up text asking where he was, but the message wouldn't even send, showing that dreaded red exclamation point. It dawned on me that he hadn't just gone offline, he had blocked me on every single platform we used to communicate. I sat there vibrating with a rage so intense it felt like my skin was too tight for my body. How could a man who claimed to love my children just vanish into thin air the moment things got real? My kids started asking why Uncle Richard wasn't coming over for our scheduled Friday pizza night, and having to look into their innocent faces and lie was the most painful part of this entire ordeal. I told them he was as busy with work, while internally I was screaming at the cowardice he was displaying. He clearly failed the most important loyalty test of our lives, and he did it in the most pathetic way possible. It's actually quite frightening how some people can wear a mask of stability for an entire year only to crumble the second they're faced with a minor challenge. I didn't drive him away, his own inherent weakness and fear of responsibility drove him away. If a simple positive test which, mind you, was a blessing makes a man run for the hills, then he was never the protector I thought he was. I am the victim here, a single mother who tried to secure her family's future and ended up being ghosted by a man who obviously couldn't handle the weight of a real woman's needs. I spent the rest of the evening checking and rechecking my phone, hoping that maybe he had just lost his mind temporarily and would come crawling back with a valid excuse. Every time the door didn't knock and the phone didn't buzz, my resentment grew into a towering monument to his betrayal. He didn't just block me, he blocked 2 children who looked up to him, all because he's a selfish child himself. I'm sitting here in the quiet of my house, realizing that the man I thought was my soulmate was actually just a placeholder who didn't have the spine to lead. The irony of the situation is that he probably thinks he's the one who escaped something, when in reality, he just proved he was never worthy of the crown I was willing to give him. A real man doesn't delete his digital existence because he's scared of a diaper, he steps up and asks how he can help. Richard chose the coward's way out, and while I'm furious, I'm also somewhat relieved that I found out his true nature now rather than 5 years down the line. I just wish he hadn't been so dramatic about it, making me look like the villain for simply wanting to verify his commitment. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, so you lied about a pregnancy to test to him and you're surprised he left? That's not a test, that's psychological warfare. OP's reply, it wasn't warfare, it was a necessary check-up on the relationship. If he can't handle a scare, he can't handle a real future with me and my kids. Anonymous user 2 says, Richard didn't fail a test, he passed an escape room. You literally tried to trap him and he saw the red flags from space. OP's reply, a real man doesn't run from the woman he loves, he steps up to the challenge and proves he's a provider. Update 1. It's been 2 days since my last update, and the silence from Richard's side is becoming absolutely insulting. I haven't been able to eat or sleep properly because I'm so preoccupied with how he could be this cruel to someone he claimed to cherish. I finally had to resort to using my daughter's iPad to check his Instagram, since he hasn't figured out that I have access to her sub-accounts yet. He hasn't posted anything new, which I take as a sign that he's hiding in shame, unable to face the world after his pathetic display of cowardice. I managed to get a hold of his sister, Sarah, under the guise of checking in because I'm such a concerned partner. She had the audacity to tell me that he is devastated and needs space to process everything. Devastated? I'm the one sitting here with 2 children to raise and a baby on the way, according to the narrative he believes. It's truly fascinating how men can twist their own flight response into some kind of emotional trauma that requires them to be pampered. I decided that since he was being a child and blocking my number, I would take a more formal approach to get through to him. I sat down and composed a very detailed, very logical email explaining exactly why his reaction was the reason I had to test him in the first place. I told him that his immediate instinct to block me proved that my suspicions about his lack of commitment were entirely founded. I made sure to mention that if he came back right now and offered a sincere, tearful apology, I might consider forgiving this momentary lapse in his character. In the email, I even tried to frame the pregnancy as a blessing in disguise that was sent to show us the true strength of our bond. I told him that every great love story has a moment of crisis, and this was simply ours. I explained that a woman of my standards doesn't just settle for, okay, and that I need a man who is willing to fight for us, not run at the first sign of a positive stick. I was being incredibly generous with my words, offering him a path back to me that he honestly doesn't deserve after his behavior. He hasn't replied to the email yet, which is just another layer of disrespect added to this growing pile. I've been checking my inbox every 5 minutes, expecting to see a long, rambling confession of his mistakes. The fact that he's remaining silent just tells me that he's too ashamed to face a woman who knows exactly what he is now. He's likely sitting in his apartment, staring at the walls, realizing that he's lost the best thing that ever happened to him because he couldn't handle a little bit of reality. My kids are still asking about him, and it's getting harder to maintain that he's just busy, lie. I had to take them to the park today just to get them out of the house, and every time I saw a man who looked even remotely like Richard, my heart jumped. It's unfair that I'm the one carrying the emotional weight of this entire situation while he gets to play the devastated card. I'm doing everything in my power to keep this family together, and he's doing everything in his power to hide like a frightened rabbit. I'm starting to think that maybe he doesn't realize how lucky he was to have someone like me who cared enough to even bother testing him. Most women would just let a man drift along, but I wanted us to be elite. I wanted a relationship that could withstand a hurricane, and all I did was provide a little bit of simulated wind. If he can't handle a simulation, he definitely can't handle the real storms of life that we would have faced together. I've also been talking to my friends about it, and they all agree that his behavior is completely unhinged. They see how much I've invested in him and how much my kids adored him. For him to just cut us all off over a message is proof that he has some serious psychological issues with commitment. I'm the only one in this scenario acting with any kind of maturity or foresight. I'm currently looking into ways to see if he's been active on other sites, just to make sure he's not out there trying to find someone else to trick. It would be just like a man to run from a pregnant girlfriend only to start swiping on dating apps the next day. I won't let him get away with that. I'll make sure anyone he meets knows exactly how he treats his family. He needs to understand that actions have consequences, and you don't just get to walk away from Stephanie without an explanation. I'm giving him another 24 hours before I take the next step. I have a lot of patience, but even a queen has her limits when it comes to being ignored. He thinks he can just wait me out, but he doesn't realize that I'm the one holding all the cards. This relationship isn't over until I say it's over, and right now, we are in the middle of a very important lesson. Update 1 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, diagnostic tool? You lied about a whole human being to see if he'd blink. You are literally the reason people have trust issues. OP's reply, it's not a lie, it's a diagnostic tool for the relationship. I need to know the quality of the man I'm letting into my home. Anonymous user 2 says, he's not ashamed, he's gone. You emailed him to tell him the lie was of blessing? You're delusional if you think he's coming back. OP's reply, you clearly don't understand how deep romantic testing works. Real love requires extreme measures to verify its authenticity. Update 2. It's been 1 week since my last update, and the situation has escalated into something truly theatrical. Instead of having the courage to face me like a man, Richard sent a mutual friend, Mark, to my house to pick up his gaming console and those hoodies he left behind. I saw Mark pulling up into my driveway from the window, and I felt a wave of pure, unadulterated disgust. The fact that Richard can't even stand on my porch and look me in the eye while he takes his belongings is the ultimate proof of his cowardice. I refused to even touch the doorknob when Mark knocked. I stood right behind the wood and shouted so the whole neighborhood could hear that if Richard wants his things, he needs to come and talk to his growing family himself. I wasn't going to make it easy for him to just erase his presence from my home without a confrontation. Mark looked incredibly uncomfortable, shifting his weight and looking at his shoes, which I can only assume is because Richard told him some twisted, filtered version of the truth to make me look like the crazy one. I watched through the peephole as Mark stood there for a good 10 minutes, probably texting Richard to tell him I wasn't cooperating. It gave me a small sense of satisfaction to know that I was disrupting their little clean break plan. You don't get to just send a courier to pick up the remnants of a 1-year relationship while I'm sitting here pregnant with your child. I kept shouting through the door about responsibility and the needs of the children until Mark finally gave up and walked back to his car. Once they were gone, I realized that I needed to step up my efforts if I was going to trigger Richard's dormant protector instinct. I downloaded a burner app so I could bypass his blocks and started leaving him voicemails that he couldn't ignore. I told him, in a very calm but firm voice, that the intense stress he was putting me through was bad for the baby. I made sure to sound a little bit frail, a little bit breathless, because I know how men respond to a woman in distress, or at least, how a real man should respond. I figured if he thinks there is a physical consequence for his actions, his biological drive to protect his offspring will finally kick in and override his fear. It's basic psychology. Sometimes you have to remind a man of his duties by highlighting the stakes. I left about 5 messages detailing how my morning sickness was getting worse because of the anxiety he was causing. I wasn't lying about the stress. I really am stressed out by how difficult he is being. The kids are starting to notice that Richard's stuff is still here, but he isn't, and it's creating a very tense environment in the house. My son asked if he could play the Switch that Richard left, and I had to tell him no because it's a sad reminder of someone who didn't value us. It's heartbreaking to see them caught in the crossfire of his immaturity. I'm the only one holding back the floodgates of their disappointment while Richard is probably out grabbing drinks with Mark and laughing about how he escaped. I've also started posting things on my social media indirectly, of course, about how real strength is staying when things get hard. I know his sister still follows me, so I'm sure she's reporting back to him. I want him to see that the world knows he's a quitter. I want him to feel the weight of public opinion pressing down on him until he realizes that the only way to regain his dignity is to come back and make things right with me. There was a moment last night where I almost felt bad, but then I remembered that I'm doing this for the sake of our future family. A little bit of manipulation is a small price to pay for a lifetime of security with a man who has been properly vetted. If I have to use a burner app and a few medical exaggerations to get him to see reason, then so be it. I'm a mother fighting for her nest, and there are no rules in war or love. I'm still waiting for that one call, the one where he breaks down and admits he was wrong. I can almost hear his voice cracking as he begs for another chance. I've already decided that I'll make him wait at least 3 days before I let him back into the house. He needs to understand that you can't just block a queen and expect to be welcomed back with open arms the next day. It's just so frustrating that I have to work this hard to get a man to do what he should be doing naturally. I shouldn't have to be the director of this entire drama, but apparently, Richard is incapable of writing his own scenes. I'm just waiting for the climax where he finally realizes his mistake and rushes back to save the day. Until then, I'll keep using every tool at my disposal to bring him home. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, using a burner app to fake medical distress is a new level of low. You're literally harassing him at this point. OP's reply, I'm just trying to save what we have by any means necessary. If he was acting like a man, I wouldn't have to use a burner app. Anonymous user 2 says, protector instinct? He's protecting himself from you. You're shouting at his friends through a door like a lunatic. OP's reply, I'm the only sane one here fighting for a family. Everyone else is just watching from the sidelines with zero skin in the game. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and the grand finale finally happened, though it wasn't the romantic reconciliation I had choreographed in my head. Richard finally sent a long text, but he didn't even use his own phone. It came from his mother's number, which just shows how deep his blocking obsession goes. I opened it with shaking hands, expecting a 1,000-word apology, but the first sentence hit me like a bucket of ice water. He didn't say he missed me, he said he was relieved that I had finally shown my true colors so he could walk away without a shred of guilt. He went on this long, self-righteous rant about how he actually had an engagement ring hidden in his sock drawer for the last 3 months. He claimed he was planning to propose on our upcoming anniversary, but the moment I tried to trap him with a third child, knowing full well he wanted to focus on my current 2 first, he realized I didn't respect his boundaries. It was the most manipulative thing I've ever read. He tried to flip the script and make it seem like I was the one who destroyed our future by being unstable. I literally laughed so hard I started crying because the irony was just too much to handle. He's trying to tell me that I lost a ring because I wanted to see if he was loyal? That makes zero sense. If he had a ring, he should have been even more excited about a baby because it would mean our family was becoming official. I replied to the text immediately, telling him that it was all just a test and that there is no baby, thinking he would be flooded with relief and come racing back to me with that ring in hand. I figured once the threat of a third child was gone, he would see the humor in the situation and realize how much I must love him to go to such lengths to test him. I waited for the reply, my heart pounding with the hope that this was the breakthrough we needed. The response came back almost instantly, and it was colder than anything I could have imagined. He just said, I know. My sister saw the original photo on Pinterest. Never contact me again. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and absolute fury. How dare his sister go snooping around on Pinterest just to undermine my relationship? That is such a violation of privacy, and the fact that Richard listened to her instead of trusting me is just another sign of his weak character. He used a simple reverse image search as an excuse to throw away a whole year of my life and the bond he had with my children. I tried to call his mother's phone to explain that the Pinterest photo was just a placeholder because I didn't want to show him the real messy test yet, but she must have blocked me too. The entire family has turned against me over a simple misunderstanding. It's like they were all just waiting for a reason to get rid of me so Richard could go back to being a bachelor with no responsibilities. They don't care about the kids, they only care about their own comfort. The fact that he had a ring and chose to keep it in a drawer instead of putting it on my finger just proves he was never serious anyway. If he was serious, he wouldn't have been looking for an out on Pinterest. A real man would have seen the photo, been a little confused, and then come over to talk to his woman like an adult. Instead, he played detective with his sister like a pair of middle schoolers. I'm currently packing up the rest of his things, the stuff I wouldn't give to Mark, and I'm tempted to just leave it all on the curb in the rain. He doesn't deserve the courtesy of a dry hoodie after the way he's treated me. He's telling everyone that I'm unbalanced, but I'm the only one who was actually trying to build something real. He's the one who had a ring and decided to hide it like a coward. My kids are the ones who are really suffering, and it's all because Richard couldn't handle a little bit of creative testing. They keep asking when he's coming back, and I finally had to tell them that he's gone for good. Seeing them cry is the only thing that makes me feel like I might have made a mistake. But then I remember that if he truly loved them, a Pinterest photo wouldn't change that. He abandoned them just as much as he abandoned me. I'm done trying to reach out to him. If he wants to be a lonely coward who hides behind his mother's phone and his sister's Google searches, then he's welcome to that life. He's throwing away a queen, and he'll realize that the moment he tries to find someone else who cares as much as I do. No other woman is going to put him through the tests he needs to actually grow as a person. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, the Pinterest photo. Oh man, that is the ultimate backfire. You got caught in a lie and now you're mad at him for having eyes? OP's reply, he was looking for an excuse to leave anyway if he's checking Pinterest for evidence, instead of trusting the woman he supposedly loved. Anonymous user 2 says, Richard is a legend for that, I know, text. He didn't just walk away, he moonwalked out of that toxic waste dump. OP's reply, he's throwing away a queen over a simple misunderstanding. He'll regret this the moment he realizes no one else will challenge him to be better. Update 4. It's been 1 month since my last update, and the dust has finally settled, leaving me in a house that feels way too quiet. Richard is officially gone. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he took a transfer at his job and moved to a different city entirely. He even went so far as to change his phone number, which is just an extreme level of drama that I find completely unnecessary. It's like he's trying to pretend that an entire year of his life never happened, which is a slap in the face to me and my children. My kids are absolutely miserable, and I've had to be the one to pick up the pieces while he gets to start over with a clean slate. I eventually had to sit them down and tell them the truth, that Richard didn't love us enough to stay when things got complicated. It's the only way they'll learn not to trust people so easily. It's heartbreaking to see my son stop playing the games they used to play together, but that's the burden Richard left behind. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I've come to the conclusion that if he had just passed the test, we would be engaged right now. We would be planning a wedding and looking for a house with a big backyard for the 3 kids we would have eventually had. Instead, I'm sitting here alone, dealing with the fallout of his cowardice while he's probably out enjoying his freedom in a new city. He destroyed our future because he couldn't handle a little bit of uncertainty and a scare that was meant to bring us closer. I did everything in my power to protect our future, and he's the one who opted to burn the bridge while I was still standing on it. I don't feel guilty for the test. I feel justified because it showed me exactly what kind of man he was before I legally tied myself to him. Imagine if we had been married and I had a real crisis, he would have been gone in a heartbeat. I'm the victim of a man who was only interested in the easy parts of a family and none of the heavy lifting. I've recently started looking for a new partner, but this time, I'm going to be even more thorough. This experience with Richard taught me that some men are very good at hiding their flaws for a long time. The next man who enters my life will face a series of tests that make the pregnancy one look like child's play. I need to make sure the next one is truly unbreakable, someone who doesn't know how to use Pinterest or run to his mother when things get intense. I'm a queen who has been temporarily displaced, but I haven't lost my crown. Richard is the one who lost everything, even if he's too deluded to see it yet. He'll wake up in his new city one day and realize he's alone because he was too afraid of a woman who knew how to challenge him. Until then, I'll be here, raising my children and preparing for the man who is actually strong enough to handle a love as intense as mine. He was just a coward who couldn't handle the truth of his own weakness.